Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. In this episode, we are going to do a wrap-up of this last season that we had about the healing of the man-woman relationship for greater union. And we had so many beautiful male guests, and we really talked about some important topics that are clearly not black and white. And it was really beautiful to go through this season with the opinions and insights from men, because having a man's perspective and a woman's perspective is so powerful. And one of the topics that I really want to get into and drive home is about gender roles. Also about how men and women are really different species. We have different hormones. We function differently. Our brains are differently. And that's perfect because we are each other's complements. Men and women, we need each other. We were created on this planet to work together, to be a team, to have complementary gifts, not be exactly the same. And I find that a lot of, I've been working with couples since 2013. And all in my years of working with couples, I often see the common challenge is that women assume that men are like them and men assume women are like them, but we're different. And if we can get into the energy of celebrating each other, versus thinking one is wrong or shaming the other, then we can really live a harmonious existence. And the more we start to understand how the other species works, we can have more compassion and allowance and give them space to be who they are. So, as you know, I'm a medical doctor, so I always like to look at the science and biology behind things. And when I mean science, I mean the physiology, our hormones, the things that make us up. And as you know, we have estrogen and testosterone. And estrogen is known to be the hormone for women. It's the female hormone. And testosterone is the male hormone. Even in utero, meaning when the baby is developing in the uterus of the mother, we all start off basically looking feminine in terms of our genitals. And then it is the hormones that come in that shape then what the genitals will be. So even if your chromosomes, meaning your DNA, shows that you're going to be a woman, pretty much you will be a woman as long as testosterone is not present. And then if in your DNA it shows that you're going to be a man, you will become a man as long as testosterone is present. So it doesn't actually even matter what your DNA says. It matters what hormones are running through the system. So this goes to show how powerful our hormones are because they actually decide what our body is going to look like regardless of our DNA. So hormones absolutely shape how we show up in life. Hormones absolutely affect how we think. They affect how we act.
And remember, ladies, you know this, and men, you know this from being with your women, that we are different every week of the month. And this is because our hormones are always changing. So, why am I bringing this up to you? I'm bringing this up to you so that you can really see how different men and women are. We're so different. And the more testosterone a man has, the more masculine he is. And sometimes men can have estrogen in their system. And this is actually a problem that we're seeing with the food supply and with a lot of toxic chemicals that act like estrogen mimickers, meaning they mimic estrogen. And so this is why we're also seeing, I've been seeing these memes on social media where it was like 20-year-old men in the 70s and then 20-year-old men now, and the 20-year-old men of now look like kids still. Whereas the 20-year-old men in the 70s have like beards and mustaches and they look like men. Like they look so old relative to the 20-year-olds of now. This is all because of the food supply. So what we're having is men are becoming more effeminate, meaning they're becoming more feminine. And women, because of culture, we're becoming more masculine. Right. And so we talked about one of the most popular episodes of this season was with Dr. Chris, and we were talking about who should pay, a man or a woman. And it was very interesting to read the comments because, yes, gender and culture and finances, many things can play a role in who decides who pays, the man or the woman, right? But what we talked about, which is true, because you have to understand that, and this is something I really wanted to drive home, because after I read those comments, it's clear that not everyone understands the difference between man, woman, masculine, feminine. And so I want to just really hash that out here and talk about the hormones and all the different things that create all these nuances between men and women and how men and women relate to each other. So actually, I just want to get back to the hormones for a second before I get into masculine and feminine. So the reason why I'm bringing up the hormones is because estrogen is what makes us act like a woman, which means that with estrogen, we are able to multitask. And estrogen is this hormone that makes us softer. Whereas testosterone is a focusing hormone and it makes us harder. So, for example, female bodybuilders take testosterone, and we can even see in their bodies they become harder. They're able to put on more muscle, and the muscle's really hard. Usually, that type of physical makeup we only saw with men. And then here we're now seeing it in women because they're choosing to take testosterone. And then it even changes the resonance of the voice. It deepens the voice, right? And so it does make you leaner. Estrogen is what gives us boobs, right? Like breasts. And testosterone is what would give us abs, for example. So that softness of a woman, literally her curves, are made by estrogen. And if a man's testosterone is low and his estrogen is high, he will become rounder. He'll put weight on. His muscle definition will be less. So hormones are a real thing that shape how we act, what we even look like, right? So when men, especially men who are very masculine men, have a lot of testosterone, you even see it in how defined the jawline is. So this like definition, this sharpness, this is testosterone's traits. And what it does to the mind is it makes you focus. So men are not, generally speaking, because of testosterone, not because there's anything wrong with them, men focus. And we love that because when we're back in hunter-gatherer days, men had their eye on the prize, on the prey, and they were going to hunt. And they would come back. And the beauty of the masculine is they help us get things done. Because with testosterone, you see it through to the end. Whereas a woman's gift and superpower, when she's especially a very feminine woman, is she can multitask. And with estrogen and being feminine, it's more about being a visionary. So we have the visions and the ideas and the inspirations, and then our men help us get things done. Now, of course, a woman can get things done. And this is when she's being in her masculine. So now now that I've shared a bit about how men and women are different, like for women, we're able to kind of bounce around to different ideas. We're able to transition quickly between different moments, whereas men need a bit of time to shift gears. They're really good at focusing on one thing, which is why it's not a good idea to interrupt men to tell them something while they're in the middle of doing something. They'll get a better results. Everyone will be happier if we just let them finish what they're doing and then tell them what we want to tell them. Whereas women are like, yeah, talk to me while I make this food. Men, no, they want to focus. And so ladies, start to have more compassion for your men. And men, don't be afraid to say, hold on, I'll let you know when I'm finished, and then we can talk about it, so that you can be fully present, so that she doesn't say, oh, I already told you and you weren't listening to me. But let's set each other up to win, right? That was the purpose of this season of the podcast, is we want to win at this game of love, right? It's a game. When we play by the rules, and, there are, of course, is no official rules, but if we really get to learn and know and hear and listen to each other, we can have way better relationships. So now what I also felt was really important to talk about within this episode was to really understand masculine and feminine and how it's different from man and woman. So within every man and woman, there are masculine and feminine traits. As individuals, absolutely, we have both. And when we are enlightened individuals, having your masculine and your feminine balanced is so powerful for you to create anything you want on the planet. Because the idea of masculine and feminine principle is they come together for co-creation to create the child or whatever creation project, whatever thing you want to create in your life. And what happens is when we are in coupleship, polarity happens. So, for example, you can imagine that every man and woman exists on a spectrum of masculine and feminine. And when you are conscious of the masculine and feminine nature of humans, you can strategically decide, am I going to be more masculine in this moment? Am I going to be more feminine in this moment? Now, these masculine and feminine traits are like archetypes. They exist beyond an individual person. They are just known. Like we know that certain things are light and dark. It's part of polarity. So this has been studied for a long time, and we can observe masculine and feminine traits by looking at nature. So no one just made it up. It's like a standard that exists across space and time. It is a study. So if you have ever studied polarity work, which I have, which is part of also what I guide clients and couples, so individuals and couples in, because the more you understand masculine and feminine energetics, you can do energy strategies. So you can be really mindful about, how am I being embodied right now? Am I being more masculine? Am I being more feminine? And based on what you want to achieve and realize, it's smart to be able to move from one to the other, depending on what your outcome and intention is in life. So as an individual, as I mentioned, for enlightenment, we want to be balanced, masculine and feminine. When you're in a coupleship, ideally, well, it depends on the type of relationship you have, but essentially the more magnetic and attracted you are to each other would be when one couple is embodied as more feminine and one person in the coupleship is embodied as more masculine. Usually it's the woman that wants to be feminine and the man that wants to be masculine. Because of society, there has been a bit of a confusion. And what I mean by this is the energy of working doing is masculine energy. Whether you are a man or a woman, it is masculine energy. So when you are working, so now we know in modern day, many women work. It's normal. And when we're doing that, we're in our masculine. Feminine behavior is beingness, doing nothing, receiving. And when you do that, it's the opposite. So essentially, masculine and feminine traits tend to be opposite to each other. So for example, if you're going to be in a relationship and you're a woman and you want to be the feminine pole of the relationship, then it would serve you to know how to shut off and stop working, because the working element is connected to the mind. You have to think. All of this thinking energy is masculine. Whereas being in your body and feeling your body, like movement, like dance, this is feminine traits. So every single way of being in the world, we can say this is masculine, this is feminine, essentially. So women essentially want to be more in their feminine when they're in relationship and more in our masculine when we're working. So it requires our energetic agility. And this is a lot of the work I do with my clients inside my feminine embodiment containers, currently my mastermind, my Worthy Wealthy Women Mastermind. This is all about feminine embodiment work and also to create business in a feminine led way. So a quick example of how business can be done masculine and feminine is when you create a lot of structures and planning and organizing, this is more masculine type of business creation. Whereas you're operating more from flow and inspiration and like, what's your highest excitement in every moment? That would be more feminine led business creation. Both are possible, and a hybrid of the both are possible too. So we're always oscillating in and out of masculine and feminine energy and behavior. And so what makes you masterful in your life is that personal development skill where you understand what's masculine and feminine and who you want to be when. And it's a choice. We can choose how we're embodied, right? It's not automatic. It can be, but that unconscious way of being in your life doesn't necessarily give you the results or the level of love or the level of connection. Like anything in life, when we actually work at it, it gets better with our relationships, with our business. So when it comes to that divine union level relationship, it serves you to, one, understand men and women and how they're different. And this is what I do in my couples coaching with clients, and also love coaching. If you have yet to meet your beloved, it still helps you to understand this. So then when you come into dating and relationships, you can better relate with the other person and have more self-awareness and awareness of the other to allow them to be as they are. And then it's important to understand masculine and feminine traits and know what's different and unique about it, and know when you want to be operating in which way and which capacity. So both men and women have masculine and feminine traits. And so what we were talking about in that episode that has gotten the most viral of, I posted a reel that was connected to that particular topic around who should pay, man or woman. And that reel that has gone so viral, it went viral, I feel, because when Dr. Chris said, a man is often complaining that he wants a soft, feminine woman. But if the woman has to work, and if she's stressed out about making the money to pay the bills, this would inhibit her from being soft. Because any form of stress puts you in the thinking mind of trying to figure it out and solve the problem. This is not feminine energy. Now, for some relationships that can work. And even in the episode with Nick Medina, we talked about how it is about what the couple wants. Like in some coupleships, the woman is the full provider in the relationship. And that can be okay if that's what the couple wants. And we see more and more house husbands, right? Because more and more women like their capacity to work and be in their masculine. And it works because As long as one is in the masculine and one is in the feminine, doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman, there will be this polarity. But when you have two masculines in a relationship, so for example, if you have two breadwinners and they don't, and that couple, they don't know about polarity work, you may find there's a lot of butting heads and competition for who's the boss. Whereas when you have two people that are both passive, a lot of the passion can go away, because then you're just like best friends and there's not someone taking the lead. And it's like, oh, well, what do you want to do? Oh, what do you want to do? And this doesn't create that attraction, chemistry, and polarity. And ultimately, what was so beautiful about this season of the podcast was the stress that we placed on how important it is to do your healing work, especially your childhood healing work. So your inner child work, which means all the wounds and traumas that you suffered in the hands of your parents, even though they did the best they could. Everyone, even if you came from like the best possible setting, there will be wounds and traumas, because it's just part of the human experience that will then shape your way of relating. So for example, let's say if you had parents that loved you so much, maybe you felt suffocated and then you developed an avoidant attachment style. And that's equally detrimental to the healing and the union of the man-woman relationship as someone who has an anxious attachment style. And that could have came from parents who were more neglectful. So then there was more of this anxious wanting of love and contorting and people pleasing to get love because your parents weren't able to be as fully present. And what's so fascinating is that relationships are a technology that you find your match to be able to heal the things that you need and want to heal. So as you realize that more and more, you have compassion for yourself and others. You can really use relationships to serve your personal development and the person you're in partnership with. And the more you see it as that and you have more compassion, the easier it is to be in relationships. So the blaming game stops and we start to take responsibility that it takes two to tango. And the same is true for the classic empath and narcissist relationship. It takes two. Yes, it's sad when, most narcissists have gone through some kind of trauma in their life, but so has the empath. And whatever traumas and wounds the empath has gone through, oftentimes with a parent that was perhaps with addiction or some kind of challenge or sickness, they learn to overcompensate and take care and go against their own boundaries to take care of another person. Then when the narcissist comes around, who is in survival for love and oftentimes fears rejection and being alone and doesn't have a strong sense of self, they become perfect matches for each other to help heal each other's wounds. So it's important not to villainize anyone here, but just see your part in the dance and do your healing and personal development work, because as you heal certain things, you will meet a different type of person if you're single. If you're in relationship, your partner can start to shift and evolve as you do. They don't even have to do the work. Of course, it's more powerful and you see better results when you're both equally invested and willing, but not only willing, but you actually do the work. And honesty, transparency is so important to build that trustful foundation. You want to really trust each other on all levels, because without trust, there can't be this divine union. And also devotion is so important. And we talked about love being that superpower, like in the episode with Oren, I think that was episode 111, we talked about the power of love to help transform and heal anything that's happening in relationship. But of course, it still requires each person to be present and be willing to evolve. And so this was such a fruitful, beautiful season of the podcast. And I'm sure we'll be back with more relationship topics. And so thank you so much for tuning in. All the bonuses are so powerful. I invite you to go through them. A lot of beautiful insights, gifts, and guidance are there waiting for you to discover inside the bonus content. And then, of course, if you ever want to go deeper in relationship work, reach out to me and we can set up some sessions for you in a package. And so with that, please share any of the episodes that you think would be beneficial to your partner, to friends, or to someone you're dating, or just to anyone you know who might be going through a challenging relationship time. And I send you so much love. Big kiss. Thank you for being here, and bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.